and welcome to South Asia Diary with me, Mariam Wardak. Our cover story is coming from Sri Lanka. The economic crisis has pushed the country's medical sector on the verge of collapse. Hospitals have run out of supplies. Doctors are being advised to avoid surgeries, and the people are being warned not to fall sick. In today's episode, we decode what this means for Sri Lanka and if there is a way out of this crisis. Also on the show,
Nepalese government presents bill to amend laws related to war crime. Bill risks letting wartime atrocities go unpunished. Stay tuned to find out how. Afghanistan faces a crippling climate calamity. Is climate change to be blamed or a neighbor's greed? Indian woman visits Pakistan home after 75 years, urges people to choose humanity over rivalry. Bhutanese government announces entry fee for Indians for the feels time. Will this affect ties with New Delhi? We decode.
Once, Sri Lanka used to be known for its healthcare system. It was even the envy of its South Asian neighbors. The country used to import 85% of its medical supplies, but today the sovereign debt crisis has crippled its economy, and with it, a sector that is the backbone of any society. Hospitals are left with dark alleys and empty beds, and for the people, it's an unending series of distress. Our correspondent Dasani Atauda is on the ground tracking the latest.
Meet Theresa Mary, a 70-year-old resident of Matakulia. It is a suburb in the capital city of Colombo. She is suffering from diabetes and high blood pressure. As she readies to go to the hospital, the battle begins right at home. Shortage of fuel means a scarce number of public transport on roads. Somehow managing the arduous journey, she is left stranded on the very last leg. So, with her swollen knees, Mary limps the last 5 kilometers on foot.
I had to walk to the hospital from a far-off place. I'm from Matakulia and I'm suffering from diabetes, pressure and swollen knees. Doctors have asked me to buy medicines from a private pharmacy, but I don't have the money.
Monthly medicines cost her a little over 9,000 Lankan rupees. She was briefly admitted to the country's biggest hospital. But as soon as the center ran out of subsidized painkillers, she was asked to leave. There are many like Mary across Sri Lanka, mostly those who come from the poorer households, and those who belong to the affluent part of the society. It's a case of excessive demand versus shortage in supply. They are ending up paying 4 times more than pre-crisis times.
I took my mother to the hospital for a high pressure as well as diabetes. We had to face difficulties coming to the hospital as the public transport is limited. Hospital has given me a prescription to purchase medicine especially for diabetes. I searched for it at several pharmacies before I finally got it.
The National Hospital used to be a lifeline for millions across the island nation. But today, in its dark alleys, staff has been reduced and most beds are left empty. There are patients with illnesses and there are doctors qualified enough to treat them, but the supplies of surgery equipment and life-saving drugs have been almost exhausted.
Normally, per a day, if we get 100 prescription, we will return 30 prescription. They will disappointed, no? That is a true story. Because a lot of people are searching some medicine everywhere. Some medicines are not available in the local market. After that, they are going to the doctor and doctor will change the another medicines, alternative medicine or any other medicines.
Doctors in Sri Lanka have one advice for its citizens. Don't fall ill or get into accidents. That's how grave the crisis has become. The healthcare system is on the verge of a total collapse. Some doctors have been asked to curtail on their surgeries, and others have been asked to not come on duty at all.
Healthcare system is on the verge to collapse. If the situation continues for a few months, next few months, then health system will go into a language stage.
The truth is, it is going to continue for not just the next few months, but could even be a year. President Ranil Wickremesinghe has warned that the country is staring at an even worse public health crisis. You see, Sri Lanka imports 85% of its medicines and medical equipment. It also imports raw materials to manufacture the remaining share of the needs. And over 90% of the population depends on this. But the country is now bankrupt, and the lack of foreign currency has left it unable to source enough pharmaceuticals to treat its sick. At a time when the health ministry should be reassuring, it is choosing to keep the public in the dark. No data is available to assess the real impact on the health sector.
Patients unable to come for treatment purely owing to the ongoing fuel crisis, adding that as a result of Sri Lanka's forex crisis, a lot of medicines that are deemed essential are now in excess shortage here in the country. The patients are quite literally left helpless and are waiting with hope as to when they will find a solution to basic access to even primary healthcare here in Sri Lanka. Reporting for WION The World is One outside the National Hospital in Colombo, I'm Dasuni Athauda.
Nepal's Maoist rebellion was ridden with war crimes. The 1996 to 2006 conflict claimed nearly 18,000 lives. The army and political parties have been accused openly. The complaints point towards unjust torture, rape, and murder, but a newly presented bill might be letting these atrocities go unpunished.
You won't find places like these in a tourist trekking guides. There are no roads and no electricity, just a sense of serenity amid nature. But these valleys weren't always this calm. The 1996 to 2006 period were dark times in Nepal. The deadly Maoist rebellion had spiraled into a full-fledged war. A time that was referred as Nepal's worst time for human rights. Looting, torture, rape and deaths became common. The army used systemic torture to kidnap and even kill its own people. In those 10 long years, 18,000 people lost their lives, mostly youngsters. And thousands more went missing. Even after so many years, to the population of 20 million, it feels like yesterday. Because the Himalayan kingdom never received justice. The atrocities endured by their parents and children have been long forgotten. A commission was formed in 2015. It was supposed to investigate war crimes committed during the rebellion. But over 65,000 complaints later, just 2 convictions have been handed down in civilian courts. And adding to the miseries is a new proposal. This month, the Nepalese government has presented a bill which could basically mean a jail-free card for the wartime perpetrators. The bill aims to amend existing laws relating to war criminals. So if implemented, the law would shield the accused from being brought to justice. There might be many limitations on the right to appeal, and the amendment falls short of international standards. So how is the government failing to see these many red flags? Well, those who need to see these red flags are willingly sitting with rose-tinted glasses. Some of the officials accused of rape and torture hold government ranks today.
Several civil society organizations and victims' organizations have called on the Nepal government to amend the bill and also respect the international law and aspirations of the victims. It's been over 15 years now and the Nepal government so far has failed to deliver transitional justice, which has caused deep distress in the victims and also undermines Nepal's government human law.
The people who lived through the war say they never wanted it in the first place. The war has ended in Nepal. Peace deal was reached, but common people were the biggest casualty, and even today that continues to be true. South Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
Before Afghanistan was left at the mercy of the Taliban, the country was promised aid from the Green Climate Fund. But with the fall of Kabul, every channel of cash flow immediately stopped. However, what did not stop is richer countries contributing to the country's emissions. For once, you can dispute matters of politics. Afghanistan's climate calamity is imposed from the outside.
A landlocked country located at the crossroads of Central and South Asia. Afghanistan used to be known for its rich minerals and important trade routes. But after a series of invasions, the country has been left with a plethora of crises. The 2021 withdrawal of US troops garnered a lot of attention. Every country leader showed worry about the Afghan people. But as 1 year anniversary of the pullout approaches, there are fewer details emerging from the country. And even fewer are those who were once worried. Afghanistan was left at the mercy of the Taliban. The people suffered and continue to suffer from basic issues. And one of them is the climate calamity. This year alone, parts of Afghanistan have seen devastating rains, flash floods, drought, and a deadly earthquake. It's currently peak summer harvest time, and desperate farmers were looking forward to fruits and staples. But the longing of usual spring season rain was washed away with a brief snowfall and a crippling dry spell. Then came violent hailstorms destroying orchards and wheat crops. With the serene tall peaks of Hindu Kush, the deodar cedar and blue pine cloak are few things that haven't changed in so many years. But not anymore. The glaciers, which used to be the lifeline for Afghans, are melting at an unmatched pace today, bringing the deadly floods from the mountains all the way down.
The floods in Kar's district have frightened the people, and people have left their homes and gone to other places to avoid being harmed by the floods.
I lost my 1-year-old child, Azita, in this flood. Our financial losses from the flood are so huge that we cannot even account for it.
None of these events are near normal in Afghanistan. One would say that climate change is escalating weather events across the globe. Then why is Afghanistan our case in point? Well, in this war-torn nation, not everything is climate change's fault. Have you heard of the phrase, "One man's loss is another man's gain"? Well, that's how one can describe Afghanistan's climate crisis. Some neighbors are using its vulnerable situation to their advantage. They are coming in the form of dodgy deals, something that a desperate Taliban is not able to pass. China and Pakistan have their eyes on Afghanistan's rich natural resources, like lithium, iron, and copper ore reserves. Islamabad has increased its coal imports at bargain prices. The authorities have even allowed non-stop border crossing. Experts are wondering where this privilege was when millions of Afghans wished to flee the war. The international community's approach has been short-sighted. It is hard to tell if that was the intention. Climate calamities might be way below in their list of priority and even absent from the Taliban's, but it is like déjà vu for the Afghans, who continue to pay for disasters created by foreigners. South Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
The 1947 partition, known as the world's largest migration, leaves the people on both sides teary-eyed to this day. For some, it meant taking an arduous journey on foot, and for the less fortunate, it meant torture, rape, and even death. 75 years since that fateful day, an Indian woman has decided to cross over the border and visit her childhood home in Pakistan.
August 1947. After nearly 200 years of brutal rule, the British quit India, one of the largest and most diverse nations in the world. Just ahead of departing, a British barrister divided a country he knew far too less about. But that one line on the map changed everything on the ground. Two countries took birth. One was Hindu-majority India and second was Muslim-majority Pakistan. The once peaceful land exploded with violence. 20th century saw its worst communal tensions. Helpful neighbors suddenly turned on each other. People were forced out of their ancestral villages and suddenly religion took precedence over all. The 1947 partition came to be known as the world's largest migration. And among those masses was Reena Verma. She was just 14 years old at that time. One fateful night, her family went from the narrow dark alleys of Rawalpindi, now in Pakistan, and days later ended up in Pune, a city in Western India. It has been 75 years since then, and in these 7 decades, Reena often longs for a home she left. Her ancestral home, so she embarked on a journey very few choose to go on. Reena decided to visit Rawalpindi one last time. It has not been easy though. After multiple failed attempts of getting a visa, she crossed into Pakistan by road and reached the eastern city of Lahore. This is a border crossing that divides the arch rivals, India and Pakistan. She reached a locality that has changed drastically over the years as the residents held her hand and guided her through the alley. Others showered petals on her.
I'm feeling very happy about coming to my home after such a lot of time. A very old dream of mine has come true. Everyone has cooperated with me a lot.
As she spent a few hours inside her childhood home, memories of her parents and 5 siblings who have all since passed away came flooding back.
I had mixed feelings when I came and I still have mixed feelings. I'm missing my family very much. There were 8 of us, parents, and 6 of us siblings. I'm the only one left out of them all.
Looking down from a window, she revisits the horror of partition, which is still deeply ingrained in people's minds on both sides. Reena says the world has learnt very little from the historic partition. But even after 75 years of painful memories, she clings to hope.
It has been 75 years since partition and the new generation has grown up. At least the new generation should be given a message of love so that they can try and improve things. You know, the new generation can change the government. We are neighbor countries, our cultures and so many other things are the same. So we should live in love and harmony.
अब हम तो हुए परदेसी हमारा यहाँ सब कुछ है.
South Asia Bureau, WION World is one.
सब कुछ है.
That's all we have for you on this episode of South Asia Diary. We'll be back next week with a brand new lineup of stories. Until then, stay safe. I am Mariam Wardak and you are watching WION World is One.